that note, some of the musicians that you've recorded with back home are absolutely spectacular. Were you ever nervous going into recording situations with them? Were you nervous that maybe of all the pieces that were assembled there, you might have been the weak link, something like that?
Totally.
Because you worked with some cats back in the day. I mean, Dan-wise, since from a drummer's perspective, your bass player is unbelievable, even though he's so young.
Yeah. No, I definitely have that kind of thing. And sometimes you get used to working with some people, but then you work, even with the people that I work with all the time, there are definitely some moments where I like to feel like I'm not like the top of the band, you know? And it's a challenge for me to have people in the band that I feel like I need to like bring something to the table to make it be a worthwhile endeavor for them too, you know? Yeah. So always in the studio, I feel like that's a totally humbling process. Yeah.
It is.
I mean, definitely when we were recording Transmission, that was a time where I actually hadn't been in the studio in quite some time for that one. And yeah, all the people who were recording that were like top notch and learning the music so quickly. Yeah, and especially having Dan there, that was like he learned that entire record in 1-2 hour rehearsal, you know, and had enough time to like give me some suggestions on making the music a little bit more clear for him, you know? Right. And that was like, I was like, all right, I'm getting a lesson right now, you know? Like true. I'm getting a lesson from someone who's like recorded, like he's probably recorded like over 100 records or something, you know, which like my work pales in comparison to the amount of that he's done. True. And yeah, it's good though. It's a good push.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, to have someone who's like, it's like, man, this guy that I hired is like nailing this music faster than I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. With you coming to India, I had to go through some preparation also to make sure that I wasn't here not holding up my end of the music, you know. The other thing that we were talking about is how musicians in New York, because they usually are so busy and just you need to do as much work as you can to stay afloat, right? They don't necessarily have enough of time to devote to one project as such. Do you feel like maybe in a recording process for the next album, you might be losing out on something because all you're restricted to with your band is maybe say 2 1-hour rehearsals, as opposed to maybe playing the music live for a couple of weeks or just playing it together so everyone figures out how best to bring the music out? Do you ever feel like you might be losing out on something like that in this process?
It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge for me. And it's one of the things that I deal with all the time because I didn't grow up in New York. You know, I grew up in the countryside in Vermont where we had all the time in the world. And that's what you're talking about, just hanging out for a couple weeks. Like, that's how I came up making music. Yeah. You know, like the first couple albums that I made we made it like that, you know? Or like I had this band, Caution, 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 and we recorded a record where we like holed ourselves up in like a cabin on Long Island for like I think a whole week. We had a bunch of rehearsals before that, and then we set up the whole recording studio in the living room, and we were like rehearsing and recording at the same time. Once we got the tune to a certain point, we'd be like, all right, let's lay it down, and then we can move on. We can spend half a day on that next one or something like that. Yeah. That's definitely a luxury, and it's kind of like when you're in New York, you have to work to carve out that time and get people out, which can be hard because people have...
It's expensive too, right?
Yeah, they have financial pressures, and to ask someone to like, oh, can you just move out of the city? Yeah. Like getting someone out of New York for 2 weeks is like, they're like essentially moving at that point.
Yeah, true.
You know, they don't necessarily have all that extra financial wherewithal to do that.
That's true.
So... yeah, it's kind of like it's always a dream, and you never know how you're going to be able to record.
That's true.
You know? I'm always trying to find, usually I'll hold myself up away from the city first.
Yeah, I feel like writing needs to be done away from the city. I need to come back to Pune. I need to walk up the hill. That's when all the best composition kind of work happens.
Yeah, for sure. Listening to the wind.
Listening to the wind. It's a big part. Peacocks, buffaloes, all the usual stuff that you
obviously.
Get here. Yeah. So growing up in a small town, is that part of has it stuck with you forever now? Do you not feel like New York is your ideal situation when it comes to maybe just living?
Yeah, it's just a challenge. You know, because I like to just a lot of right angles.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of like
That's true.
turning the corner like this.
Not south, east, west.
I
Yeah,
like to
just-
go a little sideways.
Do you?
Meander a little bit.
I've seen
you know?
that. I've seen that. You jaywalk with the best of us across Indian streets. So how much of the year do you spend in New York? I hear you're doing your masters right now and teaching as well at the new
Yeah.
school. Okay, how's that treating
Yeah.
you?
Both of those?
Yeah, both of those.
Oh.
Or we can take them one at a time, however you want.
No, they're treating me well because I'm working on a master's program where I actually I go up to Vermont for 1 week a semester, and I do like an intensive program for 1 week where we basically are all working on like a master's of fine arts degree. And so it's like 50 artists get together in this campus in the middle of the woods and just like talk about art, talk about projects, say yes to each other a lot, and say like, yeah, you should totally do that.
Right.
Try that also. And then I go and I do the work on my own. So I can still live in New York while I'm working on that.
Okay.
And it's kind of connected with the teaching that I'm doing because I'm teaching this Indian ensemble with Samir over at the new school. And so it's all kind of feeding together, finding new ways of communicating about music across between Western styles and Indian styles, finding ways to teach that to mostly jazz students who have never
Yeah.
played any kind of Indian music
style,
before.
right? Which is kind of what Vinay and I are going through also, where you're bringing the Indian style music to us, and we're here sitting playing Western style music, and we somehow have to figure out how
Yeah.
to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
I didn't see this happening, but
You didn't see it?
I didn't see it
What did you
happening.
think was going to happen?
I honestly don't know. I just knew, I knew it would be fun, you know. But yeah, I didn't think I'd have to sit there and learn how to play, like what I don't know what a tabla player would play for Marwa, and have to sit and kind of figure out how to play that on the drums.
Yeah.
It's not far removed or difficult, because finally music is still, I mean, it's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just but I did not expect. Can I use the word white? I didn't think a white guy would be here, and you know.
I'm a white dude.
Yeah, you are white.
What are you going to do?
With like
What
a
am I
very
going to do?
nothing really. But with such a good grasp of Indian classical music, that it doesn't seem like. Never once has the word fusion entered my mind, and not the good kind of fusion, but the bad kind of fusion. So I have to say,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty impressive.
Mm.
And all credit to your teacher. You told me that your teacher has a big part, like a big role in playing.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about, my experience with the tabla teacher was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And whereas your experience with a tabla player / teacher was
Yeah.
excellent, and a lot of deciding to follow this path just is in their hands. So
Yeah.
maybe tell us something about your teacher as well as how he helped you, because when we were talking about it earlier, you said you had a hand injury that
Yeah.
that kept you away from playing for around 4 years.
Yeah.
And he was a big part of just helping you get back towards playing, as was yoga, meditation. So you want to talk about that time?
Yeah. Well, I already talked a little bit about his like teaching approach,
Yeah,
right?
true.
And that it's a very like individualistic kind of thing. It's not a set systematic kind of way, but and he's very much about like. It's interesting because he's been in the U.S. since the early 90s, right? So
Right.
most of his teaching is being done with
To Americans.
Americans,
Yeah.
who are coming at it from this certain perspective, which usually to me is kind of like, it's like they're just like running full speed ahead, trying to get into something, and then like all of a sudden you just get to it, and it's like you can't run anymore
Yeah.
because it takes so long to learn that music so slowly.
Yeah, the process
know?
is where it's at, right?
Exactly. You just have to relax into it, So he's very good at just allowing people, maybe they need to like spin their wheels for a little while before they start slowing down and just kind of submitting to that process.
Yeah.
But it's not usually like a forcing kind of thing. And I had a lot of experience with just like the complete patience and tolerance and love that comes out of his teaching, because there was this time when I had like a bike accident where I hit a car.
Okay.
And like I hit the left side of my body. I had a guitar on my back, and I like hit the left side of my body against this van. And over a period of a few months, I got to this point where suddenly I remember practicing these Bach pieces, And in the course of one piece, my left hand suddenly slowed down to the point where I couldn't play anymore. And I went through this long period of just like not treating it.
Okay.
And I just couldn't practice for a long time. And it got so bad that I was like, I felt the pain of playing guitar when I just looked at the guitar, even before I picked it up. And I had this time where I didn't, I was like kind of confused about Indian music, and I thought maybe it's like to be expected. I went through this period of anxiety or something that was like, well, I don't think that I'm preparing to be like a professional Hindustani classical guitar player. Yeah. So maybe what's the point? You know, and I had just kind of moved away from it for a long time. And after I had this injury, I just like had this moment of waking up where I went back to Samirji and I said, look, I have this problem. I want to play, but I can't play, you know? And he said, okay, just come back next week, you know? And I started sitting, I started listening to, I would show up. I couldn't even bring my guitar because I didn't know what to do with the guitar. I was listening to like 5-year-olds having tabla lessons, starting to feel a little bit jealous because these 5-year-olds were making more music than I could. You know, and then he started just kind of nudging me a little bit like, okay, why don't you play for 5 minutes? And if you start getting anxious about it,
we'll stop.
Just let yourself stop, follow your breath for a few minutes and wait till you're not anxious anymore and then go play again. You know, maybe you need to just stretch a little bit or something like that. So he, through guiding me to like repeatedly reminding me to not be anxious.
Right.
That was like the main thing. It was just don't be anxious, let it do its thing. Then I was able to kind of find the space in my life to get back to the music. That's when I started going to more yoga classes and I started realizing, oh, I have to get my whole body functioning better.
And you actually have quite some control over your whole body just with the mind. You know, it's not out of your hands.
Absolutely.
So,
and realizing that like you can have some kind of physical problem, but then it can become a mental thing too. And you start telling yourself that things are going to hurt, even if they maybe actually aren't going to. Right, so then you start fabricating this pain.
Yeah. So and the physical problem is healed, but the mental issue is still there. So now it's just, you don't even know your hand is fine.
Yeah. That's like, and that's, you know, it's an interesting, ironic thing because my mother is actually a psychiatrist, and she has done a lot of work with chronic patients who have chronic pain. Right. You know, these people who have back pain for 10, 20 years or something like that. Yeah. And what it turns out a lot of times when there is pain that's been there for so long, you get used to it and you think that it's like part of your identity. So then how do you get over that and retrain yourself to say, I don't have to have this identity of being in pain.
Yeah.
Why can't I just believe that I can just do whatever I want?
Right.
Why do I have to go around saying, oh, I'm still playing music, but you need to know how much pain I have?
Yeah.
Why can't we just get over this and then become, you know, show other people that there's a lot of power in the mind to get over those things?
Yeah. I think it's all in the mind, really, or a lot of it is.
A lot of it is.